30 Minutes with Ron. Hello, I'm Ron Gagliardi. I'm the host of 30 Minutes with Ron, and tonight we have two very special guests. Over here, we have Jeff Guimond. Got it right. And we have Alona Zamoji. And they are here to tell us about the story of ball and socket arts. But first, go back. We want to go back in the way back machine to when this thing all started. There's three partners, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And you were in high school together at Cheshire High School. What was your class graduating year?
1986.
1986. Okay, so somewhere in that vicinity, you decided something.
Well, I think we decided it a little later.
Oh.
You know what we did decide around 1986 was that we were all artists and we all could have a career in the arts. So we all went our ways. I studied originally theater and then fashion and then back to theater. And Jeffrey went on to study music and Kevin studied fine arts.
Kevin's last name is?
Daly. Sorry, Kevin Daly.
Okay.
So that was, I guess, this decision that stretched back to high school. The decision to found Ball and Socket Arts came pretty much later, about 2011.
That's right.
Jeffrey and I remained very good friends since we graduated high school, and his mother still lives in town, though he lives in New York, but he'd frequently come out and visit and hang out in Cheshire. And, ball and socket's been there a long time.
Since 1850.
Yes, and you grow up around it, and it was working when we were in high school, and then it went defunct, and then it sat sort of looking sad and unloved and getting sadder and sadder, and the boards were getting bare, and windows were being smashed, and when you just think like, well, this is sad. And I think we, like many other people, were thinking, well, what's happening there? Is anything going to happen there? And Jeffrey, I'll speak for him. He's sometimes impetuous, and he just decided on one of his trips to Cheshire to find out what's going on with that property, because something should happen at the property. It's amazing. So he called town hall and he did a search on the property and discovered that it's been tied up in sort of regulations and a mess. And so he said, well, that's that. And then just maybe 3 months later, a giant for sale sign went up on the lawn. Mm-hmm. And I took a picture of the for sale sign and I thought, well, that's interesting. And I emailed it to Jeffrey, and Jeffrey was like, I'm going to call the realtor. So Jeffrey called the realtor. And he just said, we're a group of artists, local artists, we're interested in taking a tour. So I think what happened was the two of us went and met the realtor at the site, and we just absolutely fell in love. The moment we walked in those doors, we fell in love with the buildings. We saw enormous potential in those buildings. We could sort of see life in there. We could see these amazing underused spaces that would just welcome art and the community. It was this treasure, in our midst.
Yep.
So it was that tour that we took that gave us the idea to start a nonprofit organization and give it a try. We just thought we'd throw our hats in the ring and see what happens.
Okay. Now, it's not that easy to start a nonprofit organization.
No,
but we did it really quickly because we were so inspired. Neither of us had any idea what was inside that building. Everyone in town knows the West Main Street frontage, the West Main Street facade. It's kind of iconic. But the building is rather large. It's a 3-acre site, and it's mostly covered with buildings. Mm. So we were just really stunned and blown away by the size of the spaces there and their beauty. The way the buildings had been put together over the years created these really wonderful spaces. And as I remember it, we walked through in this wonderful fit of excitement and just thought, oh, this room has to be this and that room has to be that. We kind of came up with a plan. on the spot. And that plan is pretty much the plan that we have today, even after architects and engineers and other people have reviewed it. The spaces spoke for themselves. And so that's what we're doing.
And so you had this idea, and you became a nonprofit. And how did you decide to do this? Did you decide to do it in phases, all at once? How did that work out?
At first, it was just all at once. It was a toast and a dive. You know, we're artists by background, so we're not developers, and we have been learning in the process, on the job, as we're going along. I think we expected we could raise the money and open the project as completely as we possibly could. But we've developed a phased approach, which I think is sensible for two reasons. One, just financially, raising the money to finance the construction of the project, and also just sort of just, you know, allow the town and the community and us to put our toe in, you know, do a little something, get something started artistically, get something started with the rehabilitation of the site, and really prove to ourselves and have the community prove to itself that the rest of the project can be as wonderful as what we will open with. So we are starting with a smaller phase, which we hope to open in about a year.
Now, when you first started, you must have had plans for the future. Are they the same now as they were then? Like, did you plan to have it open like a year ago, and then all of a sudden, well, it's not going to be a year ago, and how did that work?
I think we were extremely optimistic when we started.
Yeah.
We thought things would move much faster than they had, but it's been a very difficult ball of twine to untangle, to get all of the regulations and work with the state and work with the town and our environmental company. There's a lot that needs to be done behind the scenes, which isn't very sexy or interesting, but it needs to be done. So we've been pushed back, for sure. But we also have made really valuable use of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've become sort of very well educated in this, as opposed to being complete neophytes, and made a lot of friends, a lot of contacts along the way, developed an enormous group of wonderful volunteers that we call the Socketeers, and met a lot of artists, met a lot of historic preservationists. Really has been time very well spent sort of gathering the team you need to make something like this happen. So yeah, we've been like a reed bending in the wind, but we're very firmly planted. I think I don't know who I was talking to the other night, saying that there are probably a million opportunities for us to jump, because this project is so complicated and it takes so much work. And for some reason, none of us have. We're still doing it. So I think that's it's a testament to what it could be.
You have an official group of helpers,
Yes.
a board of directors, is that?
Yes, yes.
And so when you have a board of directors, there's someone who's in charge of them. Is that one of the three partners, or is it someone from the board?
It's someone from the board who's our president.
The three founders are the current officers of the corporation. But Dick Lau is the chairman of our board. He's a retired veterinarian from Cheshire, and a very philanthropic fellow, along with his wife Elaine. So he's the chairman, and he's sort of in charge of the board operations that way. And the board has expanded. Initially, I think we had maybe 4 or 5. There are the 3 of us plus a couple others. And now we're up to 11 members. We might expand up to even to 15. And the nature of the board has shifted a little bit. You know, it was at first people who were just excited by the idea and wanted to help out with whatever needed to be done. And now it's sort of evolved into a more sophisticated operation for fundraising and management. You know.
When you mentioned Dr. Lau, I always called him Dr. Lau because he was our vet. And he was the guy that when our dogs were having problems, he helped us out. And when our dogs had really bad problems, he kind of led us through. Yeah, so he's a great guy. I really know him fairly well, and I miss seeing him. But I'm sure he's doing wonderful things with the board. Do they have regular meetings?
Once a month, yeah.
Where do they meet?
We meet at the Cheshire Chamber of Commerce. The chamber, we're members of the chamber,
Mhm.
always have been from the very beginning, and the chamber's been very supportive in that way. They allow us to use their space for meetings and whatever other resources they have to offer. So they've been great.
Excellent. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the big question: how are you ever going to raise all the money to bring this to fruition?
We've created a capital campaign for phase one called Bricks and Glass, because we're focusing on a lot of exteriors, but it's really about getting the buildings restored. And we've just launched our capital campaign this past weekend with a window sponsorship action, where we are offering the windows to people, individuals or groups, to sponsor with a donation level. And for that, they get to identify it as theirs. The glass will be etched on the window that they chose. And so that's one step, and it's a way to get a lot of people who are fond of the project, who are excited by the buildings and what we plan to do with them, in the door. Because it's a lot of money we're looking for. We're looking for $2 million for phase one, but it's not a lot of money considering other projects that you might hear about, art museums and such. It's a small project, so we really feel that with enough people here in town donating at a level that's comfortable, we'd be able to pull together the amount that we need to do phase one.
The entire project we estimate will cost about $15 million to redo the entire site. And we're starting, as we said earlier, with a smaller phase one. That's a $2 million capital project, and we think we can raise all that money from individual contributors here in town and the surrounding area. We believe that's feasible, it's possible that kind of support exists in town, but we also want to do it this way because we want to know that the town is behind the project in that way. So when we go out to raise the rest of the money, the remaining $13 million, and that's going to mean a regional or statewide campaign, that we can say the town of Cheshire and the people are really behind it. So to that end, we've just launched our Bricks and Glass campaign that Ilona mentioned earlier. We're doing an annual campaign and as well as other events in the coming months. But if people are interested in knowing more about the project, our website is full of information and beautiful photographs. And there you can also learn more about the naming opportunities that Ilona mentioned, to sponsor a window on the phase one area. We're also offering the possibility, if people are interested in memorializing themselves or their family or an honoree, that they could name the gallery or the event space or even the building itself. All of those possibilities exist, and we hope that people will take advantage of them.
You have a person named Patty who's involved with this somehow. We didn't mention her earlier.
Patty Hartman is, she's our angel. She has been working in Cheshire at the food pantry, and she sort of slid over to us recently as our fundraising coordinator. And she's been tremendous, tremendously helpful.
Now, you did have an event, I guess during the summer, where there were paintings going on. What was that all about?
This past summer, we had a plein air series that Gary Richards, who's our event coordinator, conceived and organized, and it was really quite wonderful. It was 4 sessions over the summer, once a month, and there were plein air artists who came from all over the state, and a lot of people from here in town as well, set up, and they painted the buildings. And had some really lovely pieces of art that came out of it. And many of the artists actually donated the paintings they created at these sessions. And we just successfully auctioned them off this past Saturday at our launch party.
But there was another one that I'm told is now the largest exhibit of art in the history of Cheshire.
That's the Windows Project.
Yes.
Right. We realized after we purchased the buildings themselves in 2014 that we needed to do some programming, do some art in town, both as a way of demonstrating what the project would be about, but also as a way of connecting with people, bringing audience and artists into the fold, so to speak. So in 2015, we did Art Garage, which was a pop-up art gallery at the Strollo Garage across the street on West Main there. And we did 5 exhibitions over the course of the summer and finished with an art auction. and that was wonderful. People could come and speak with us. We would be there and sort of meet us and then learn about the project. But we really wanted to do something on the site to draw attention to the site itself. So the next summer, we organized the Windows project, and the concept behind Windows project was to cover the grayed, weathered plywood that was boarding up all the 52 windows on the red building there on West Main Street in Willow,
Right.
with art, colorful art, draw attention, remind people about the buildings as they were sort of fading into the background as they weathered there. And we really wanted it to be a local project. So the concept was to use 3 sides of the building. The front facade would be a mural project organized by local muralist Tony Falcone, and painted and put together by a crew of volunteers. And the Willow Street side would have reproductions of art from the past that was connected with Cheshire, starting with including Kensett and a representation of the engraving press that was in Cheshire in the 18th century. And then the inside facade facing the courtyard was a juried show of local artists, and the artists were ranging from 10 to 6 to 80. And it's a really fantastic show, and you could pull up and sit there and just and look at all sorts of different art.
Yeah.
Very colorful, and it's been very successful. It's drawn a lot of attention, and a lot of people love to drive by, and especially people on the trail, coming by.
Yeah. We should probably talk a little bit about the history of the building, because it was a button factory, and they made more things than buttons, but that was their primary thing. And by the way, they became the Ball and Socket Company. Do you know why they're called Ball and Socket?
We've learned, yes.
You mean what a ball and socket is?
Well, yes. Why did that name get applied to it? You can tell the story.
Well, to my knowledge, Ball and Socket was a company from New Hampshire that bought the Cheshire Manufacturing Company,
Right.
And changed the name to Ball and Socket Manufacturing Company. And a ball and socket is a snap fastener,
Yes.
Which I'm very familiar with in my field, and that became the name. And we actually just we kept it because it's a really great name.
It is.
And it's got a great ring to it, and it means several different things. So we feel that it's very fortuitous that back then that company gave this building its name.
And there was a time that it was Cheshire's post office.
Mm-hmm.
And the building that faces West Main, there's a very strange door. It's an angular door. And it's the only angular door that I've seen in Cheshire. So if you happen to be driving by on West Main, but don't do it you're going to get distracted from your driving, but there is an interesting door there you might want to look at.
Yeah, there's sort of a debate about that building. We went through the historic registry process with our architect to get it listed on the State Historic Register, and I think we're still in the process of getting it registered nationally. So we went through a lot of history to try and unpuzzle how the buildings were put up and taken down, and in some cases put back up. But originally, the entire site were wooden buildings, very much like the one on Willow Street. Mm-hmm. And if you sort of observe it, it's a building that was put up in a series of constructions. So the theory that we're going with is that the front of that building is very old. It's the oldest material on site, but it wasn't there originally. It was just taken apart and moved to that location, and then it was added onto somewhere in the middle of the 20th century to make it very long. So it's really you can sort of see the break in the side of the building where the old one stops. You definitely can see it on the inside, and the new one begins. And so one of the theories that's floating around is the reason that door is on an angle is that there was some sort of damage when the building was taken apart and moved. So they just sort of made do and made something interesting out of the damage, and it turned into something really unique.
Yeah.
But there is a photograph that clearly says West Cheshire Post Office above that door.
Yep.
And so you have this plan, and I've seen some of the plans for it. Let's tell our audience what's going to go into this complex.
All right.
Everything.
Wow.
No, well, it's very much conceived as a multi-use project. both because that's our vision, and because we think it's practical from an operations point of view, a financial point of view. Most of the space, the largest spaces, will be for art galleries, rotating art exhibitions. We won't have any permanent collection of any kind, but those could be exhibitions of contemporary art. It could be art from the past. It could, whatever we choose to do, but large spaces for galleries. Also a music performance room that could also, and any of these spaces could be used across purposes as well.
Right.
I imagine, I was just touring the factory with the conductor of the Hartford Symphony this weekend, and she imagined a symphony concert in the main gallery space, for example.
That would be noteworthy.
Indeed, indeed. And the music room, as I call it, could also be a space for theatrical productions, for spoken word events and that sort of thing. We'll also have a specifically a dance space with a sprung floor that could be used for yoga classes. So those are the exhibition spaces and the performance spaces. In addition to that, we'll have workspaces, co-work spaces for people who are working for other nonprofits or for social causes, or just business people looking for a place to have a cup of coffee while they're startups who while they're working out their plan and perhaps interact with other people with exciting ideas. Studio space for artists to work. And then, in addition to that, a collection of retail spaces. 4 or 5 spaces on the first floor have been reserved for retail, and on the south end of the building, a casual food court near the entrance to the bicycle path, the Farmington Canal bicycle path, and then towards the north side of the building, a fine dining restaurant as well. And all of those uses, so to speak, will be represented in our Phase 1 building. We'll have a little of everything: an art gallery, an event space, offices, and hopefully a nano brewery.
A nano brewery. Wow.
We really want someone to brew ball and socket ale.
Excellent. And I hear there's going to be a museum.
Yes.
Tell me.
The museum we are hoping to have in the front room, the executive office building, as we call it, is the one that's up front and doesn't look like anything that belongs here. That's because it was built in an Elizabethan style, or slightly after Elizabethan, sometimes Jacobean. It's sort of a fantastical structure to have at the front of a factory. And it's got some lovely interior spaces, but it's not very large. But what we propose to put in that space is a factory that deals with all the many interesting things that were happening historically in the area. So it could be manufacture, it could be the railroad, it could be the history of the canal, it could be processes or materials, and it would be an educational and interactive museum that would also change with the times, and new exhibits would come in.
And there used to be this beautiful sign on the front of the building.
Yeah, we still have it.
What happened? Where did that go?
Well, the letters were falling off.
I noticed that.
I wish I had some images. It's actually been really cool with that sign. We took it off to have it restored and put back up. So that is still happening. But what we discovered when they took it down was on the reverse, all the letters had been spray painted on the back of the sign at some point. So we had sort of a very modern, cool-looking, spray-painted copy of all of the letter shapes.
The shadow from
the
spray.
So as when you spray paint around something, you lift it up, you see its shape.
Right.
So someone had spray painted all the letters at some point on the back of the metal board that they used as the sign. And we discovered that the letter shapes actually were not the same as the ones that were on the sign. But the letter shapes were the same as the ones that were on the historical photographs. So somewhere in the 70s, I think, they restored the sign by taking off the old letters and putting on new letters, which were a little bit more machine-made. And the old ones looked like they were handmade. So we are using the shadow shapes to restore the original outline of the letters.
Wow.
So it became, we thought it would be easy to fix, and then it became a little more complicated to fix.
Right.
But we're going to do it right. So hopefully we're going to even use reclaimed wood from the factory to cut the letters out of.
Right. Yeah. Now, we should add that you got some aid along the way
Yes,
from
yes.
the town of Cheshire and from the state of Connecticut.
That's right.
Can you
yeah.
go into that a little bit? Because I'm sure if any of those folks are watching, they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, we helped out here too.
Well, the state of Connecticut made it all possible. So we very early applied for a brownfield rehabilitation grant and loan package that the state of Connecticut was presenting in order to rehabilitate the many factories that basically litter the state that nobody's doing anything with because they're too expensive to rehabilitate. And it's a very progressive program that they ran, but most people, it seems, were using the old factories for residential, and they were really hoping that there would be people out there who would want to use it for community and cultural purposes. So we submitted our application,
Jump
and,
right in there.
I understand.
and we were really, really surprised to discover that we won it. So that was the reason we were able to get going on this project at all. It gave us the ability to actually buy the property.
Yeah. And Cheshire did something. They had to
The
vouch for something?
Yes,
the loan portion was directly to Ball and Socket Arts, and the grant part of that, plus a new $750,000 grant that is currently in the works, were through the town of Cheshire. So the town was a co-applicant in that sense. So they were partners in receiving that funding, and will, I imagine, continue to be partners in the development of the project.
Excellent.
They've been very supportive.
It's always good to see the town helping out.
Yes.
Now, we have about 2 minutes left,
Okay.
and I want to make sure that you guys get to say what you want to say that I might have forgotten. So, let's try it.
Well, I really just want to say that I think it's obvious. I think it's obvious to everyone on the surface that this is a good idea. We've not encountered anyone who says it's a bad idea to build an arts center. But actually making the case for the amount of investment required can be a little more complex. And I think if you really just think for a moment about something that you could do to actually improve the quality of life in your own town, this is a perfect project for that.
Yeah.
Whether you have any interest in the arts or not, because it's very, our vision for it is as a common space for everyone. You can come off the bicycle trail, get a juice at the juice bar, take a little break, and go back on the trail, and maybe see some art or maybe not. Or you could be an art lover who comes there only for the art, and you love the restaurant too. You know, there are many ways that people can use this place, and so I think there's something there for everyone, and I really hope that people look to our website and contact us in any way if they have any questions about the nature of the project. We're happy to talk about it, and I hope that everyone in the town will find a way to come support Ball and Socket.
Excellent. We have like 30 seconds left. Anything from Alona?
Well, I guess there's something to be said for passion and vision, because neither of us really have time to do this project. All three of us are full-time working professionals. So the fact that we are still at it, I think, is coming from the support we're getting from the other people in town.
All right.
People have really gotten behind us, and that matters so
Well,
much.
on behalf of those people, I would like to thank you.
Thanks.
Because it's so nice that you're doing this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And congratulations to you for tuning in. Thank you.